Hi, this is Janice. This is day 14 of 100 Days of Code as I'm learning the Python programming language. And this video is to track my progress as well as hold myself accountable. So today I spent some time reiterating functions, my learning on functions, and then also going into defining functions. And so if you go to python.org, actually there's a number of resources on the web that you can find that list the built-in functions that come in the Python interpreter. So many of these I've been using, for example, integer, where you can take a data type and change it to an integer. You can do the same with strings. You can do the same with floats. So there's a number of these that I have been using. These are preset. So they're built-in functions that come into the Python interpreter. You don't actually have to define them. However, if you're looking to write your code and there are some that are not there, you can always create your own functions. And so I spent some time doing that today, and this video will cover just a tad bit of that. So let's go ahead and start by defining a function. So you use def, which stands for define. This allows us to create our function. I'm going to create a function called welcome, and it's going to have the input of the user's name. You need to have the open and close I'm sorry, the parentheses. The parentheses will differentiate this from a variable. So this is saying that this is actually a function that has to be executed. You want to also have your colon there. And then we'll start giving our function instructions by inputting code that it will execute when we call it. So let's go ahead and say it's going to print welcome. It'll add the username, and then we'll put an exclamation point on it. Okay, and notice that it is indented, and this is required when you're defining your function. Okay, so for this one, I'm actually going to create a variable that asks the user to please choose a username. So prompt them to enter a username, and then so we've defined it. We have created a variable that will prompt our user to input a username, but now we actually have to call. It's called call, and so what it does is it triggers that function to execute the code that you assigned for it. So we have to call that function, and then let's execute this and see how it goes. And there you go, it works. So it prompts me my username, I input it, and then it welcomes me. Okay, so let me show you what happens if you leave out. So because in my function I actually uh, included that it had to have the username, if I leave that out when I'm trying to call it in my code, you'll notice that it'll prompt me because it's running it in order. So it's going to prompt me to choose a username. And then it gives me an error. And if you read this error, it says it's a type error, tells you line 9. So that's why it's important to read the error messages. So line 9, I have a type error and it's missing one required positional argument, which is the username. So again, this is a part of debugging. This will help us to make sure that our code is written correctly. JSander. And there you have it. It works.